Wait, are you gaming? On a Chromebook?
Yep. It's got a high-res 120Hz display, plus this killer RGB keyboard. And I can access thousands of games anytime, anywhere.
Stop playing.
What?
Get out of here.
Huh?
Yeah, I want you to stop playing and get out of here so I can game on that Chromebook.
Got it.
Discover the ultimate cloud gaming machine, a new kind of Chromebook.
This episode is sponsored by FX's American Horror Story, Delicate, starring a female-led ensemble cast, which marks the highly anticipated return of fan favorite Emma Roberts to the franchise. Delicate also will be introducing some fresh blood, featuring Kim Kardashian in a role that was specifically written with her in mind, along with Cara Delevingne, who will both be joining the AHS family for the first time. FX's American Horror Story, Delicate, Part 1, premieres September 20th on FX. Stream on Hulu.
Hey, what's up? This is Sully from Godsmack. Strap on those boots, baby, because you are now in the trenches of the war room with the one and only Mistress Carrie right here on the Mistress Carrie podcast.
What's up? This is Joe Rogan, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie.
Her hair so lovely, pretty eyes.
Hey, this is Brent from Shinedown, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie. Hey, Carrie, go put your bra on, girl.
Hey, this is Steven Tyler, and you be listening to the baddest bitch in Boston, Mistress Carrie.
What's up? This is Aaron from Stain, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie.
Hi, everybody. This is Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters, and you're listening to the one, the only Mistress Carrie.
Hey, this is David from the band Disturbed, and you're listening to the baddest bitch in Boston, Mistress Carrie.
Hi, Bruce Dickinson here from Iron Maiden. Yes, indeed, Miss Whiplash herself, Mistress Carrie, is here to unchain your brain.
Hi, this is Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. You're listening to Mistress Carrie.
This is Dennis Leary. You are listening to my favorite, Mistress Carrie.
Hey, this is Corey from Stone Sour, and you're listening to, you have the privilege of listening to Mistress Carrie. Oh, God. Oh, yeah.
Hey, it's Mistress Carrie, reporting for duty from MCHQ for episode 171 of the Mistress Carrie podcast. And before we get to this week's guest, Art Alexakis from Everclear, I want to remind you about these 70s retro 3/4 sleeve jerseys that are now available in the online shop at mistresscarrie.com. Now that fall is around the corner, you got to put some sleeves on, and they might as well be black or purple. They feature the Mistress Carrie 2-colored logo with the flames on the front, and the new jerseys are just one of the many things that you can find in the online shop. Just go to mistresscarrie.com and check out the shop, or click the link in the show notes of this episode. Everclear are out on the road in support of their new album, recorded during the band's first ever appearance at the Whiskey A Go-Go. The new album, Live at the Whiskey A Go-Go, is available everywhere, and Everclear are bringing the tour to Big Night Live in Boston coming up on the 17th. You can get tickets if you click the link in the show notes of the episode. I talked to Art from his studio in Pasadena, California, and we talked about all the gigs he's played in Boston over the years, his own personal studio, the band's 30th anniversary. We talked about his childhood and learning to play the guitar and the music that shaped him as a musician. We also talked about the differences between recording on tape and digital, and why the music of the early 90s is still so huge. Art had a front row seat for an unbelievable time in music, and he is never one to mince words. So I was so excited when I finally was able to get him on the podcast. So allow me to introduce you to Art Alexakis from Everclear. Hello, Art. Thanks for hanging out with me today.
My pleasure. How are you?
I'm really good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
The first thing I always ask, where are you? Because half the time touring musicians don't even know.
I'm pretty good about that. I didn't used to be. I'm actually in my studio in Pasadena, California. I have a little office and a little studio back there. And my wife has a studio where she does Reiki healing and yoga and all sorts of stuff like that next door, sound baths. So yeah, I'm about 1.5 miles from home. So we're still getting ready for tour. We're going out playing shows this weekend and next weekend, and then we get on the bus on the 5th. So yeah, we're still at home though.
And head east, September 17th, you'll be in Boston at Big Night Live.
Yeah, I've never played that venue. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah.
I played just about everywhere else in Boston, but not there.
We've got, over the last few years, some really cool new venues have opened up. And after losing some of the more seedy, iconic venues like the Rat and the Channel over the years, to get some new venues in Boston has been pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I played the Rat for sure back in the day, before it closed down. The Paradise, of course, House of Blues, Avalon when it was still around, The Axis when it was still around, Mama Ken, Boston Garden. Yeah, we played a bunch of shows. The Middle East, of course.
Obviously, I mean, you can't be a growing rock band and not come through the Middle East at least once in your career. Everybody's played there.
At least once. It's a prerequisite for sure.
I love seeing the studio spaces of the artists when I get to talk to them this way, because everybody's are kind of decorated a little different. And obviously, as you get ready to celebrate your 30th anniversary, you got some platinum stuff up on the walls.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is I had these records forever and ever and ever, and I got, a bunch more all over the place and awards and stuff. But I never put them on the wall in my houses. I never felt like doing that. Even the studios I had before didn't seem like the right place for them. So they were just in storage for literally over 20 years, some 25 years. But when I opened this studio back in 2015, I think it was, I'm like, okay, I have an office where I do a lot of stuff, computer, keyboards, all my recording equipment. I'm gonna put my medal up on the wall.
It seems like musicians, anybody that has any level of fame in kind of the entertainment industry, doesn't want to bring that home and put it on the walls, because your home is supposed to be the place you escape. So it doesn't surprise me that you don't want to bring work home with you and put it on the walls. Home is supposed to be where you hang the dog pictures.
Or the baby pictures.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. It just never seemed like the right thing. Regardless what, and I've been married 4 times, regardless what amazing person I was with at the time, I never wanted to do that. A couple of them did. Were like, let's put up those platinum records. I'm like, nah, I don't want to. But this is the right place. This is where the work gets done. This commemorates it. If you go in my guitar room, where I got all my guitars hanging, I've got old posters from, all through the career back up there, which is really cool.
When did you start playing guitar? When did this musical journey for you start?
Well, I took lessons for the very first time when I was living in the projects. I was 8. They gave free lessons at the community center, and I went over there and took some lessons, and it came pretty easy to me. But they stopped doing those lessons because it was really violent at the time in that neighborhood. So the kids stopped going there for a little while, and then they opened it back up a little while later, but they didn't offer the guitar lessons. But for sure, I started taking guitar lessons when I was 14. I got a guitar for Christmas from my mom, a used guitar, a Vox Phantom that she bought for $40 from a pawn shop, and a little crappy amp for $25, and a distortion pedal for $10. And that was my Christmas present. And that was a big deal. And she gave me 8 lessons. And she said if I could play her a song at the end of them, she'd buy me 8 more lessons. And I played her a little bit of something Led Zeppelin, probably Stairway to Heaven. So, yeah. And she bought me 8 more lessons, and that's it. That's all I've ever had.
So can you read music, or do you play by ear?
Just play by ear. No, never wanted to. Never wanted to learn that, because I knew guys who and gals who like studied music and read music and did all that. And I've done a little bit of reading music because back when I was a kid in the 70s and in the 60s and 70s, every time you go to school, you know, if you were in fourth grade or over, you had to take an instrument. So they taught you how to read, you know. But I wasn't interested in learning how to read to play rock and roll. I just it didn't interest me.
Please tell me one of the guitars in your guitar room is that original guitar your mom gave you. Do you still have it?
Nope.
Do you know what happened to it?
Yeah. Well, it got thrown away. My mom, that guitar, oh my God, that was a Vox Phantom, a 1961 Vox Phantom. That thing was 64 Vox Phantom. It would be worth $20,000 now. And she bought it for 40.
Oh
It'd be
my
worth
God.
20 grand. Easy. Because it was in great shape. And she knew I wasn't playing it. It was hanging up in our garage at one of her apartments. And she threw a bunch of stuff away when she moved, and she threw it away.
Oh, my heart breaks for you.
Put it in a dumpster.
Oh, hopefully somebody went dumpster diving and that guitar is still alive somewhere.
I hope so, but I don't think so.
Oh.
Then she put a bunch of furniture over it. They might have got it from the dump, you know, because there's a lot of people who go combing the dumps. But I don't think so. I think it's buried somewhere.
What? I have a theory about music that there's two parts of your musical upbringing. There's the music you get gifted, the soundtrack to your childhood. And then there's a moment, usually in adolescence, that you hear something that you say, okay, now that is mine. I like that. I've decided. And then everything changes after that. So what was the soundtrack to your childhood? And then what was it that changed everything for you?
That's not an easy question because they kind of mingle. But I grew up the baby of 5 kids. My dad, who was 100% full-blooded Greek from Greece, he spoke English, but hard to understand him. He was really into the crooners, like especially Sinatra, Perry Como. My mom was into country music because she grew up in the Deep South. So Carter family, Hank Williams, people like that. Buck Owens, loved the Bakersfield sound. My eldest sister was more into Motown, stuff like that. Motown, Tamla Motown. She actually went to the Tammy show back in 1965 at the Santa Monica Civic. And then my brother, who was 3 years younger than her, was into like heavy stuff, Kinks. First of all, everybody was into the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, just a given. But my brother was into Zeppelin, The Who, Black Sabbath, stuff like that. My next sister was more into stuff like Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, Creedence Clearwater, Joni Mitchell, James Taylor, Bob Denver, that type of stuff. And then my youngest sister, who was 5 years older than me, was into bubblegum pop, which was like Tommy James and the Shondells and stuff like that.
You got it all.
I got it all. I loved it all. I had AM radio, which played nothing but great songs. Hit songs back then were not great because, one company had more money than the other. They just played great songs. Didn't matter if it was rhythm and blues and soul and funk or hard rock or pop, whatever. They played it all. And I decided back then, I heard some people, as you get older and you start making those decisions like you're talking about, kids will go, well, that music sucks. And I'm like, I don't think any music sucks. There's music I like and music I don't like. And there's no bad music. And there's people who still in their 40s and 50s disagree with that. That's cool. We can disagree. But I think everything, if people like it, it's valid, whether I think it's good or not, But I think it's funny because, I mean, I starting when the time I was like 11 or 12, I started asking for albums for Christmas and birthday, right? Because we were poor. That was the only time I could get them. And I would ask for a hard rock record like Led Zeppelin 4, and then a funk record like Earth, Wind, and Fire, or Ohio Players and Black Sabbath. And, I did that for years. But I have to say, the first thing I really found on my own that really connected, and I've talked to other people, and even my daughters kind of on their own found like oldies rock and roll, like 50s rock and roll, Little Richard, Chuck Berry, Fats Domino, Eddie Cochran, all that stuff that used to get played on an oldie station here called K Earth 101 in LA. Now they play 80s and 90s music. So we get played on oldies radio, which is, some people take it like, I know guys in famous bands who are like, we're not a 90s band, man. We're not that. We're still current. And I'm like, no, you're not. You might think you are, and you might still make music, which is great. Doesn't mean you're not relevant. Your music now is not relevant, but your success, the time you made your name, people know you from the 90s. So just acquiesce to it.
It's pretty awesome that your daughters have now gone back to discover literally where it all started, the pillars of rock and roll that every band, regardless of genre, has lifted from since. Little Richard, Chuck Berry, all those guys.
The good bands have. Bands now, music now, I don't think they're going back. I don't think they're listening to the stuff, or they're not admitting it, because it just sounds like they're all sounding like each other. And it's like the gene pool, which is really deep, of recorded music. On your phone, you can listen to music from the 1920s, the 1800s that were recorded, Kalahari Bushmen. You can hear anything on there, but they're just interested on what got a hit here and what got a hit here. And so the depth of the music and the lyrics just shrinks.
There always seems to be kind of a new wave of like rebellion in rock and roll. And what I'm seeing with some of these newer bands is that there's so much technology that they're rebelling against it and taking after a guy like Dave Grohl, who built a studio of all analog gear, and they're discovering the art of recording on tape again and not using Pro Tools. And as somebody
Wait a minute, hold on. One thing, Dave Grohl's a millionaire. Right? He can afford to do that.
Yeah.
I can't even afford to do that. So that whole thing of like people thinking that stuff's hit. Look, I love the sound of smashing tape. All our classic records are recorded on 24 track, 2-inch tape. And kudos to Dave for doing that. But at the same time, every average guy and gal who was trying to record, the technology today has nothing to do with whether there's soul to the music or not. And I defy you. Mistress Carrie. I'll play you something on tape and something I recorded on digital, and I will bet you $100,000 you can't tell the difference.
Really?
Yeah, you will lose. You'll lose.
Art, I would love that $100,000.
You're not going to get it, babe. You're not going to get it.
And this is coming from somebody that came up in the era of radio where I learned how to edit on that tape. Like, yeah. It's unreal when you talk to people now and you're like, grease pencil, razor blade. Oh, I was there.
No, as was I.
Yeah.
And, I was in film school in the 70s and 80s. I was cutting 16 millimeter, tape and film and cutting my fingers. I was cutting, I was cutting 1/4-inch 8-track tape and splicing it together. No, I've done all that, and that's great. And working with tape is great. But what I'm saying now is that for the most part, not 100%, 98, You cannot tell the difference between digital if you do it right with the right equipment, with some analog equipment. But recording to digital in of itself, that has nothing to do with it. It doesn't. But I do record. I mean, I've got stuff here. I've got analog stuff there.
Oh, look at your gear. Nice.
I've got two more of these back there. I've got Neves and stuff like that. So recording to that is great. Necessarily the tape is incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't exist. No one's making it anymore. So when you try to say well,
that's what I mean.
Cool.
Trying to bring the old school sounds back, number one, and two, trying to resist the urge, because digital makes things so easy to fix, of not fixing the art out of rock and roll and leaving in the mistakes, which seems to be, from what I hear from musicians, tell me I'm wrong, is where the magic is.
Well, I think that's actually a little bit precocious to say that, because I think there's all sorts of different types of magic, and I've produced many different records. But yes, there is magic in it. And yes, there is a dichotomy of everything sounding tuned, and kids today listening to that and then listening to Led Zeppelin or bands from the 70s or even before that, when there was no tuning, when you can hear them be off. I was listening to Hotel California, a couple of songs from Hotel California this morning. I heard like 8 or 9, 10 totally off. I've got really good pitch, off notes. Does it bother me? No, that's rock and roll. But for kids and younger people who grew up with Spotify and only listened to Spotify and stuff on Spotify and listen to digital music made today, it's all tuned. Everything's tuned. The drums are tuned. It's crazy. We don't do that. If something's really bad, see, this is the thing about the magic. If you do a take and it's got great attitude and it's really wonderful and it's just got all the magic to it that you can't recreate again, you go, oh, great, give me another take just like that. Can't match it, right? That's the take. But there's a couple of off notes. Just tweak those notes up a little bit. That's fine. It's the thing that really takes the guts and the balls out of it is when you tune everything. You melanine everything, and then that just brings zero up to another place. It's like compressing stuff. People want to make stuff louder. It doesn't make it louder. It just takes it up, zeros up here instead of down here where it's supposed to be. So that's kind of where it goes. I think you can take the magic out of it if you use too much technology, but I think the technology has made it possible for people of non-liberal, like very modest means, let's say modest means, to be able to take what's in here and put it down and record it. Because the creativity and the magic, that doesn't come from technology. It doesn't come from analog tape or any of that crap, or even from my fancy Neve compressors and processors. It comes from here. This is where it comes from. Here, and down there a little bit.
You alluded to a lot of the 90s bands, and with Everclear celebrating its 30th anniversary, I had a conversation with Billy Corgan recently about why that era of the 90s generated so much iconic music. What was it about that time for you that, because I don't even think we realized it living through it, how iconic of an era of rock and roll it was going to be remembered to be. So what do you think kind of teed up that part of the 90s to give us so many memorable bands, Everclear included?
That's an easy answer for Billy Corgan and everybody, and male or female. We all grew up in the 70s. We all grew up with classic, what's called, we call classic rock radio when it was new. Zeppelin, Aerosmith, even pop music, funk, all that stuff. It was just visceral and relevant and just in your face and recorded well, and it just sounded wonderful. And that's when we think of places like, I see that bridge, it makes me think of a song. You ever do that? I'm driving down this boulevard, it makes me think of this music that you probably listened to driving down that when you were a kid, when you were a sponge, right? Before you had all this other information and noise and distortion from life. When you were pure, that's when that was coming in. That's why that sticks with you. At the same time, we lived through punk rock and new wave and all that music and alternative music. For me, the Replacements, Husker Du, Soul Asylum, REM, all those bands in the 80s, and then Jane's Addiction and other bellwether bands, Pixies, bands that just changed the roadmap, brought a sea change to what alternative or modern rock music was, until we get to, of course, Nirvana, which just opened the door for just about every band. My band, definitely the Foo Fighters. Greg, I'm sure Dave would be the first to tell you, right? And Smashing Pumpkins and Pearl Jam. Pearl Jam's album had been out for a year. No one was paying attention to it. And then Nirvana came out and they recorded those videos and they became alternative too, because that wasn't even a term. Grunge was a term, but no one in the Northwest, I lived in Portland, no one called themselves grunge. That's what marketing people used, That was something that came up from the sub pop people to call stuff. That wasn't a real thing. You couldn't define grunge because grunge didn't really exist. But that being said, when you're talking about the technology, our new album, not to make a shameless segue,
No, make the shameless segue.
Our new album that's coming out September 8th, tour starts September 6th. The album comes out September 8th, and it's live at the Whiskey A Go-Go. And there's plenty of notes on there that are not tuned. We didn't melodyne it. We didn't make it all crazy with Pro Tools and stuff and technology. We cleaned up a few things here and there because we were having problems with recording technology. One guy's ears wasn't working, his bass packs weren't working, the drummer's in-ears weren't working. So we had to adjust to that. So there's noise on there, but it's pretty live. And there's a lot of notes in there that I think some people might find off, singing and even guitars. I left it, man. It's ragged. It's rock and roll.
It's the Whiskey. Talk about an iconic rock venue.
Absolutely. That's where I grew up. We had never played there before. I had been there literally hundreds of times growing up in LA, playing in bands in Hollywood. I had sold drugs there, did drugs there, had sex in backstage, all this stuff backstage with other people's bands, got into fist fights there, witnessed a gunfight outside. But I had never played there until December 1st last year. And that's the show we recorded for this album.
As you get ready to go out on the road, do you have to relearn your own songs? I mean, Everclear has got songs you guys must have played tens of thousands of times by now. Do you have to go into rehearsals and remember how to play your own stuff?
No, we would if we didn't play so much.
Yeah.
But we're playing 60 shows a year every weekend. We're doing we're playing somewhere every weekend. We're playing constantly. We played 3 shows last weekend. Got a show leaving tomorrow, show this Saturday, got a show next weekend, and we get on the bus and we play on Wednesday. So no, there's no time to rehearse. And we're doing a new song that is on two of the songs on the record are studio tracks. One we put out last year called Year of the Tiger, and a song called Sing Away. And for Sing Away, we filmed a video last week, and I just got the rough cut of it. I'm making notes on it and stuff. That should be out in a week or two. But we had to practice that song because we recorded it, 8 months ago, and we haven't been playing it. So we're going to play it starting on the tour, starting on the 6th, Lexington, Kentucky.
It's got to make you feel good to look out in the crowd and now see generations of Everclear fans singing your songs back to you.
It's a trip. It's a trip seeing people who weren't even born when these songs came out. That's a trip.
Yeah.
Knowing all the words. And I talked to them, and some of them are turned on by family or family friends or whatever.
That soundtrack to your childhood that we were talking about. You are now part of their soundtrack.
Yeah, because they were strapped into the back seat while mom was listening to Sparkle and Fade, right? And that's fine. I'll take that all day long.
Yeah.
A lot of these kids are finding 90s rock because they consider that to be the last vestige of old school rock and roll, alternative rock, grunge, whatever you want to call it. And when they start looking through the bands, they find the bands that have their flavor to it. And a lot of them, glom onto Everclear. It's really cool.
I saw this meme the other day that said, if Back to the Future was made today, Marty McFly would go back to 1993. And in that moment, my head almost exploded.
I don't know that that's wrong. That sounds about right.
No, it is right. It's 30 years. They went from 1985 to 1955 in the original movie.
Oh.
So they would go back 30 years.
So going back would be 1993.
Yeah.
Why doesn't somebody do that movie?
I don't know, because it would be amazing.
Yeah. So instead of playing Johnny Be Good, they'd be playing like Teen Spirit.
Yeah. It would be a total trip.
That'd be awesome.
It would be awesome. All right. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. You're going to be in Boston at Big Night Live coming up September 17th. And the new live album at the Whiskey A Go-Go is coming out before you get here. So everybody can go and listen to the live album and then go and experience you live when you get here.
Awesome. Thank you, Carrie.
It was so nice to see you. Thank you so much.
Take care.
There he is, the one and only Art Alexakis from Everclear. The band's new live album, Live at the Whiskey A Go-Go, is available everywhere, and their tour will be in Boston at Big Night Live on September 17th. Check the show notes of this episode for a link to get tickets, and the album is featured on the corresponding playlist for this episode. I make a playlist for every full-length episode of the Mistress Carrie podcast that features all of my guest music and all the other artists and songs that we referenced in the episode. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to follow, and subscribe to the Mistress Carrie podcast. New full-length episodes come out every Wednesday, plus every weekday you get the sit rep. All of your rock news, music headlines, and entertainment updates boil down to around 5 minutes. And besides, you never know when we're going to release a bonus episode. You can join me live every Tuesday night at 8:30 Eastern on my official Facebook page for my video show, Cocktails in the War Room. And you can always find me on the radio. Get the details on all that and more at mistresscarrie.com. And don't forget to check out the shop and those new retro 70s jerseys. The Mistress Carrie podcast, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network.
Hey, you're listening to the Metallica Report.
Hey there, podcast fans. I'm Stefan Shirazi, longtime rock writer, editor of Metallica's online mag So What, and now co-host of our brand new The Metallica Report.
And I'm Renee Richardson, Director of Philanthropy for Metallica's Foundation, All Within My Hands, and former familiar voice on Bay Area radio. We are beyond thrilled to be bringing you the official Metallica Report, now a part of the world's biggest music and culture podcast network, Pantheon.
Each week, we're coming to you straight from Metallica HQ and beyond, keeping you in the loop with the latest news, updates from the M72 tour, and some unique features. Plus, we'll be chatting with everyone, from crew members to band members, and most importantly, to you.
It's not just about what we know, but what you want to find out. So send us your questions and we'll dig up the answers.
The Metallica Report will be your weekly insider look at all things Metallica. So let's enjoy the ride together, full speed or nothing.
Find the Metallica Report wherever you find your pods.
Stay tuned on the Pantheon Podcast Network.